Have you ever wondered what it would be like to feel steady and confident in your parenting? Do you ever think about how to truly savor these precious years with your growing people? And perhaps most importantly, do you dream of creating connected relationships that endure beyond childhood? I'm Carrie Conti, and I've spent the last 2 decades guiding, supporting, and inspiring parents to know and trust themselves deeply. And as a result, there are thousands of parents all over the world who feel skillfully equipped, personally fulfilled, and authentically connected with their people in all phases of development. Join me, along with my friend and collaborator, Kristen Manieri, as we explore what it means to not parent. Let's get untangling.
So, Carrie, we've talked about what is clarity and we've talked about why we would want it. And in this episode, we're going to get a little more detailed into what's the process that we go through this. And interestingly, as I was getting ready for our time together today, this morning, I got out my journal as I often do. And I kind of just started doing a quick sort of flyover of my life. Where would I want some clarity? Where do I need clarity? Where is it lacking? And, the list went from 5 to 8 to 12 to 18.
Wow.
And that was in less than 10 minutes, I was able to see wow, there's 18 areas of my life, and probably twice that if I'd given it more time, that would feel better for me if I was clearer, if I had more clarity. So, if we were working together right now in this moment, it'd be what would I do with that list? What's next? Okay, I realize I'm unclear. Now what?
Right. And so I love that you did that. And I love that it was, as you said, I know for a fact you didn't spend a ton of time on that. And in that short amount of time, by shining the light on your life, you found 18 places that you would like to feel more steady, more sturdy, more, clear. And so that's so exciting to me because now you have that list. And it's oh, great. Now we pull out the toolkit. I had somebody in a program I did last year, and she said, it's you've got this tool shed and you've opened it to us and you're teaching us what tools to use and how to use them skillfully and how you can practice using them even more skillfully over time. And that's exactly what it is. It's this is life tinkering to me. And so if it were me, I would kind of look at the list, and I believe, this is kind of going a little deeper than maybe we needed to, but I would look at the things that are pertinent to you, your personhood.
Mm.
My guess is there's personhood, parenting, partnership,
Totally.
Professional life.
Yeah.
I can see the buckets because I've been at this long enough. And if it were me, I would want to go straight to the source because you're the causal. And so, looking at the things that are maybe a little wobbly about your own experience at the moment, whether it's self-care or getting enough rest or, the basics like nutrition, what can you do to tinker and tune some of the things and get clarity around what you might be needing to feel more fortified and to feel more connected to something bigger than just yourself, whatever word you use for God or source or energy. It's what lights you up? What plugs you in? Because what I love about this conversation right now is it's such a great example of how when you can do the inner tinkering, when you can really learn how to clarify the stuff that's not about your relationships with others and not about what they're doing in their lives. My experience is that the more I can dial in and get in alignment, clarify what that means for me to be lined up, head, heart, gut, the more things out there just take care of themselves. Mm. And not to say that happens instantly, although sometimes it does. But what I know about me when I'm really tuned in and tuned up, meaning I'm aware of where I'm at. I've done a little checking in on myself. I know what's what. And then I do some things, whether it's a list of appreciating or going out for a walk or doing some creative work. And I tune myself up. And what I mean by that is I feel that sense of aliveness, that I'm alive in the aliveness, I have an awareness. I'm accessing something that's a lot bigger than what I can get when I'm not tuned up or when I'm not tuned into myself. And so I love this idea of people making a list. And then, I encourage you and others to really go inward and do some work there first and start to learn how to resource, how to add energy, not just with food or exercise. All those are great, but a little deeper, more of a spiritual, like, who am I? Why am I here? What do I really want to get out of this experience of being alive? Because the more I do that and the more I see others do that, the more I notice that things that felt fraught or wobbly or unsteady out there seem to naturally come into a little more of a resonance that feels easier or clearer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the ways that I've had real success in I'll use your language, going inward and hearing myself, is whenever I've been in a course with you or I've signed up for a workshop and you provide the prompts. It's almost like, okay, how about look here? And there's something about the way that you use language and the way that you focus attention on very sort of specific areas that has been really, really enlightening for me. So can you talk a little bit about just this idea of prompting and how that can be really helpful, especially for those of us who maybe don't spend a lot of time with ourselves going like, hey, you, what's up in there? Right?
Yeah.
Having some guidance as to like, well, what am I asking exactly? Where am I looking exactly?
Yeah. So I have a few different things I do that I share, and a lot of them are, so there's daily prompts, like things that you can do daily to tune in and tune up. And the prompts are, where am I in my brain state? If you really understand the brain, you realize that when you're resourced, you have access to a human state. Like you can be creative and you are patient and kind and compassionate and all the goodies. You can articulate yourself. And when you get lower on energy, you operate more from a mammalian place and you're more emotional and things are a little harder to say and you get annoyed easily or you're feeling crispy. And then when you're really depleted and you go into that reptilian brain state, that's when the gremlin voices come out. And that's when you're beating yourself up and not realizing how wonderfully you're meeting your people and doing all the things that you do. And so when you can name where you are just by saying, what brain state am I in? Oh, I'm kind of human with a little touch of mammal. Okay, name it. Like that alone can shift something just by naming it. Then I ask, what's the weather inside? And that's just really about understanding, like, how is my system handling life right now? Am I blustery and I don't even realize it? Am I a little bit cloudy? Am I super sunny? And a lot of times it mirrors what I notice in my brain state. And so that's interesting information. Then like, what's going on in my body? Am I loose? Am I tight? Am I feeling, constricted? Do I feel sore anywhere? These are just like gauge checks. Like this human vessel is, it's organic. It's not just a machine. It's affected by things. It's affected by rest and nutrition and exercise, but it's also affected by out there, the world we live in. So by taking a few minutes, not even, could do it in 1 or 2 minutes and just getting a little read on things, it's so valuable because then you can look and say, okay, well, what do I need? And that's where the tuning up comes in. Oh, I need to get a nap in today, or I need to go to bed earlier tonight because I'm really exhausted. Or, oh, I need to dance. I need to put music on and lift myself up. Oh, I need to go do my essentials. I need to get a walk. I need to do XYZ. So, what am I appreciating? That can almost instantly lift us up. And when you operate with this sense of like, where am I at and how do I want to bring a little energy in, it can shift things And then you ask yourself, okay, well, what is my intention for the day? So, within a 5-minute time period, just by reading these prompts and maybe putting pen to paper, but even if you just think about them, it's valuable. So those are kind of the daily things that I've come to really do almost every day, not every day, but a lot. Then I have more seasonal prompts. Like as I'm heading into a new season, I really like to take a little broad survey of like, what is going on and what does matter? What is requiring my energy? What projects do I have going on? What are the moving parts? How am I going anywhere? Not just the who, what, when, where, why, but then a deeper asking of like, what do I want to get out of this season? Like, what do I want to focus on? What do I want to shine the limited energetic light on? And then I ask, what's my intention for this season? And by doing that, it really gives me a sense of like how I want to show up for whatever it is that I've got going on and savor the season. Because to me, each season has a different flavor to it. And then the final piece of that kind of clarity writing has to do with, what's the feeling I'm looking for and what are the things that get me there? And I've done the experiment of, getting very clear on how I want to show up and what are the things that allow me to show up that way, what I call my essential practices. So for me, it's getting outside and moving around, and seasonally they change. That's the other reason I love seasonal writing, because what I do in the summer might be very different than what I do for myself to feel the sense of intention that I'm having for that season. And when I know what gets me there in even little micro doses, I'm much more likely to experience that. And then the season has a certain satisfaction to it. And so that's why I've really shifted. I mean, I still love doing a big New Year thing, but moving forward, I'm going to be even more dialed into the seasons that I'm in. And to me, taking stock seasonally and really finding the clarity around what's my intention and what gets me there, and doing the little micro steps and not just waiting for maybe it happens. There's an agency and a joy, because then when I look back and go, oh, I said I wanted to have a really joyful, playful, connected summer, and I can point to all the places that I had that happen, there's a certain sense of like, oh, look at me driving my life. Like, look at me, taking agency and being in awe, like, wow. And so the reason I'm sharing that, I mean, for many reasons, but one major reason is last summer, before the summer kicked off, I did a summer series, a summer clarity series. And I can, without question, say I had the best summer of my life. It wasn't exciting. We didn't go anywhere. We were home in Maine and it was very simple, but I was so clear on what I wanted to give energy to and needed to do for myself to feel those things. And it was just like pure joy. Then in the fall, I didn't do it. I didn't run a course. I was working on other things. And about midway through the fall, I realized I wasn't feeling quite the level of satisfaction that I had felt that summer. And so I quickly sat down and I did a little writing, but it didn't do the same. It didn't get me there the same way as it did when I was doing it with a group. Then fast forward to the holidays were about to happen. And I had another course going and it was all about getting clear for the holidays, and sat down. And similar to what we said in the first episode, there were things about the holidays that I had never heard myself say because of the writing that I did. And the way that the holidays unfolded, and it really was clear, my intention was just to feel a sense of, like I knew the feeling and I had a word, like I had a sound for the feeling. I just, like I wanted to savor it. I wanted to sink in and savor and feel, and being aware of that and then watching what I needed to do to get there and doing it, the season was incredibly joyful. And so for me, I hope that I stay aware enough to really do this regularly, because the level of fulfillment that comes from it is different than when I don't do it.
Mm. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you juxtapose the difference between a once a year thing, which I think probably a good number of people do around New Year's or even like just through the holidays when things slow down, like taking stock of the previous year and thinking about what you want for the next year. And that's great. And I've done that and I've gotten so much value out of it. But where you're talking about doing it seasonally, every 4 months coming back or every 3 months coming back to that work and, oh yeah, where am I again? What matters to me? First of all, you get 4 times the value, right? But you were sharing recently with me about a new program that you're going to be launching that not only is going to be taking us through this process 4 times a year, but also over many years. And when I start to wrap my head around what would be possible for me to bring that level of intentionality and deliberateness and generativeness, like I'm a creator, like I'm going to actually go create my life 4 times a year, 4 years, I can't even begin to estimate what my life is going to be looking like. So let's share with me a little bit about this new program that you've come, because I can't wait. I'll be the first to sign up.
Yes. Okay. So here we are talking about clarity. And I got clear this year that this was the thing I wanted to focus on. This was the juice, the energetic offering that I wanted to go forward with. And so what I came up with that feels really delightful to me is it has 2 components. It's a seasonal guidebook that you get in the mail that will give you and have prompts for the season and then other reminders and some of the more day-to-day prompts. So it's chock full of prompts and practices and ideas and just these reminders for staying present to life. So that comes in the mail 4 times a year. And then, yes, we're going to do the seasonal clarity writing, but I'm also going to add in, so we'll do that first month of each quarter. So September, and then we'll do it again in December, and then March, and then June. But I think that's a little too long. So I'm adding in a monthly call. So it's 90 minutes of sitting down and I'll settle us in, get us grounded, get us present. And then I'll run us through some very thoughtful and simple prompts that will just keep us present and aware to our life. So first month of the quarter will always be getting clear for the season because I find that just so invaluable. And then the second and third ones will be me teaching something and then us diving into the writing. So it's really like a reset. It's like a monthly giving yourself 90 minutes. To me, it's like a soul yoga class where you're like settling in, opening up. You've got a guide that's taking you on the ride. So you don't have to think of anything. You just have to put pen to paper or type out what you want. And we're going to dive in and just explore ourselves and our lives and really ask ourselves like what matters and continually just keep coming back to it. And so I'm committing myself to doing the monthly workshops. I'm calling them. They're just 90 minutes once a month, and the seasonal booklets for 7 years. Wow. Like that's my personal, this is an art project. This is an experiment. This is an exploration that I am like so excited about. And if somebody wants to join me for 1 month, they can. And if they want to join me for 28 months over 7 years, they can. Like, I want to see what happens if I'm intentional about life for that long. Like, I have a pretty good idea because I've been doing it, but I've never put a structure around it. I know that it will be valuable. I have no idea what's going to unfold, but the idea of being committed to something for that long with that much focus and that much space around it, because really you're just committing to getting something lovely in the mail once a quarter and sitting down and doing a call with me for 90 minutes or at your leisure, the recording once a month. Like, that's sustainable. Like I feel calm when I consider that as my offering.
I love it. Well, and I think having the recording is great, but I can speak to how much value I've always gotten from being on live calls, and you share a prompt, you give some, color to it, some detail, and then you're like, okay, you got 3 minutes, like 4 minutes. Let's do some writing. And I've been to meditation classes before where I feel differently when I'm doing it at the same time as a bunch of other people. I don't know the science behind it. I can't make sense of it, but I know that if I'm in a yoga class or I'm in a meditation class or I'm in a workshop and I am in this zone with other humans, something really special happens. And I've experienced that again and again and again when I've been on your live calls and we've gone and done our clarity work with you prompting, giving a little more color, and then giving us space. And then, having a couple minutes at the end for a few people just to sort of share what came up for them. I always get so much value out of that, like doing this in community and knowing like I'm not the only one who feels like this or struggles with this or wants this so much. Having that mirrored back to me and all of these other really amazing human beings that you seem to draw into your vortex has been such a game changer for me in my growth. So I'm excited about the process. I'm excited about the structure. I'm excited about the longevity and the intention. And I'm excited about the community. That all of that really lights me up and it makes it a yes for me.
Ooh, I love that. That is so beautiful and well said. And I'm excited too. Like this has been decades in the making. Like it's so fun that the distillation, the essentialization of my whole career comes to this, that I can give people these beautiful, simple little guidebooks with prompts and photos I've taken and little bits of wisdom that are just going to keep you like, oh, right. Like the idea of having a book that fits in your bag, it's not that big, or sits on your bedside. Like to me, the energetics of that, like, oh, right. I see. Oh, there's the little booklet. It's called the Clarity Quarterly. And it's like, oh, it's over there. And I'm about to, get frustrated about something. And I can just go over and look at it and open it up and remember to pause, or I can remember to appreciate, or I can remind myself to set an intention. Like I'm going to be, each quarter, you're going to get a new little goodie that you actually can put your hands on. I've been online for so many years now and I've done all these programs and they've been fantastic. But to me, like getting something in the mail and not having to check our email and not having to, be invested, just living life and then coming back, tuning in, it's like the way I see it is in a way over the years, we'll be writing our self-help book. Like we're creating our own self-written book that's going to give us so much insight into who we are and what we love and what matters and what we want to give our energy to. And the thing that I'm like buzzing with excitement about for this is your people, whatever age they are, your kids are teens. And if people have younger children, like imagine you embark on this and once a month you're like, got to go do my Saturday class with Carrie. Oh, what did you do today? Oh, here were the prompts. And like, without you having to say, come on, let's do this together. It's just going to be woven into your experience and they're going to be noticing. I mean, if you're doing something once a month for any amount of time, but definitely for a year or 2 or 5 or 7, they're going to absorb that. And to me, there's something almost like around the bend about that. Like you're not saying, I'm taking this class and it's about parenting. You're living it. You're getting this little booklet. You can pull that out at dinner and be like, oh, let's do a prompt. Like, what do you all think about da 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 da? Like one of my questions is always going to be like, what are the sensory experiences of this season that I really love? And so all season, you're aware in a different way of the smells and the sights and the traditions. And you're creating this little roadmap of what matters and what feels meaningful for you. And then you can also invite your people to join in or do it themselves or just do it and see what happens.
I love that. I love that you could have it just for yourself, this gift that you give for yourself, your little mini retreat that you go on every single month.
Yep.
Or you could also have it be shared with everybody, you know, depending on the age of your family and what situation that you're in. I love that there's that option. So I think you mentioned that the website is Clarity.
Oh, I don't think I did.
Clarity,
it's Clarity with
Carrie.
Carrie.
Right.
Yeah.
Carrie. And I know there'll be a link in the show notes for that.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting, what's sort of like ironic about this conversation as we sort of close it out and kind of leave this invitation for our listeners to consider this, is that how anyone listening will decide whether this is an invitation that is actually something that we want to pick up is through clarity, right? Is actually tuning into ourselves and hearing ourselves. And the question that comes up for me to ask, and I'd love to hear what comes up for you, is like, what would be possible for my life if I really made clarity a priority in my life? How would I feel? What would I create? How would I move differently? And so for me to sit with that question, and I wouldn't have to sit with it long to say, oh yeah, my life would feel sturdier. I would feel more confident. I'd move with more intention and deliberateness. What would you have people consider or try to get clarity on, attempt to get clarity on as they consider their lives and also the impact of what you're offering?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is a dedicated 90 minutes a month for yourself. You know, we had a big pile of guests visit this weekend. We live in Maine and we had a family reunion that came to our home. 19 people were staying here in a very small place, and it was fantastic. And I was in this moment of sort of noticing and realizing like how many dreams that I have dreamed have become my reality. And I love the idea of asking people, like, the 7 years is going to go by. That's a guarantee. Your kids are going to grow. Things are going to change. There's going to be seasons of joy and seasons of sorrow. Like, life is going to happen. So how do you want to be with it? And while the energy is moving, where do you want to point that light? Where do you want to be giving the energy? And how are you crafting the space and time to do that? Because the reason I mentioned the group being here, I was very aware of how tricky it was to pull myself back to me with that much chaos happening. And, that can happen even with one other person in the house. That we live life. My experience is that, especially when you're in the midst of parenting, you're just living life and you're on, and then you go to sleep. And then you wake up and you're on and on and on and on, and then you go to sleep. And maybe you're doing stuff for yourself because that message has been out there a while now. However, to me, 90 minutes a month that you're giving yourself and only yourself, you're diving in and getting fed prompts that are going to extract information out of you that is really sometimes tricky to hear when you're not in a situation where you're being asked. And to me, the idea of being that place and being that community where you're going to go through a little process, you're going to learn a little something about yourself, you're going to hear from a different part of yourself because you're just a little more settled and you have a guide that's creating an environment that's allowing for that. To me, like, there's such potential in there. And, there's all sorts of reasons why I picked the number 7. It's a little longer than 5. It's a little less than 10. There's a lot of ideas in spirituality that say that we operate in these 7-year cycles. I just like the number. And I also know that it's enough that you could dream it. Like, you can see 7 years ahead. Because if you look back 7 years and considered all the things that have unfolded, the people that have been born, the things that have, the jobs that have unfolded, like, it's a lot of time and a lot of life. And when you are captaining your ship or driving your craft and taking breaks to check on the gauges and see how you're doing and recalibrate, course correct, back at it every month, there's an exponential potential, like the opportunity for you to be in the driver's seat of your life is just like wild. Like, I'm going to do the experiment no matter what. And I've been doing the experiment. I can look back on 7 years and name 100 dreams that have unfolded and the ways that my life is completely different and the things that have come about and the things that I wrote down that are completely my reality right now that didn't exist. They were just an inkling of a dream at the time. So the idea of putting this very spacious and fun structure around it and having a bunch of people join me, that's a dream right there. And so the idea of like, where will we all be in 7 years? We have no clue. And I do know that by putting myself in a position to check in regularly, it will be something much more to my creation than not.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I just can't wait to do it with you. I've got a dozen friends already in my mind that I'm like, I really hope they say yes too, because I'd love to be on this with them and having conversations with them.
That's my dream, that people cluster.
Totally.
You have your little clarity cluster. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the idea that it's an appointment in my calendar every single month. You know, it's just an appointment. I love the idea of getting really intentional about where do I want to be for this call? Like, do I want to have a special snack that I always have or a special tea, or do I want to go somewhere?
Right.
And do I want to maybe do something right afterwards, like a big 90-minute hike or something? But yeah, there's the basic offering. And then there's so much I can do with it that I could make it even more richer than what you're offering. So I'm so excited. I'm so glad we got to do this again and talk about this, such a pivotal part of your life and your teaching, that I can attest that clarity has been such a game changer for me and what I've learned from you and how I've navigated the different seasons of my life as a mom, but also just as a human being. So I'm glad we did this. I'm excited about this offering, and it was just so great to be with you again.
Oh, perfectly done. And just such a dream. And it's so exciting to know where you were 7 years ago. I mean, 14 years ago. Like, that's the fun of it. I've seen 2 of your 7s. You've seen 2 of my 7s. And what's possible going forward, it's like, I'm just bubbling with excitement. Like, talk about clarity. Like, I have never been this clear about anything. I am so fired up and like ready to roll. It's just thrilling. So to be able to share this with you and talk about it, like, you just extracted all these beautiful things, and now I'm just bubbling and ready to roll. So join me, because it's going to be so much fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will see you next time. I'll see you when we get started in September.
For sure. Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Not Parenting. For any resources or offerings we spoke about in the episode, remember you can head to carrieconti.com, or you can click on the links in the episode show notes. Thanks for being here.